This is From Courtroom to Carline, the podcast where we discuss life as a lawyer and a parent.
I'm Rick.
And I'm Jenna.
Your host and partners both in the courtroom and in parenting.
Join us as we navigate the fascinating worlds of life as a parent and a lawyer. Get ready for a roller coaster ride where law meets love and where the gavel meets the car line. This is From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast, and on today's episode, we have my friend Yamilette Alvarez, also known as Jami. She has been a lawyer for almost 5 years now. We met at the Public Defender's Office in Pinellas County, and she has now fulfilled her goal of becoming a federal public defender. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So let's take it back to when we first met at the Public Defender's Office. So I had a friend that had left the Public Defender's Office, she texted me one day and said, hey, I have a friend that is at the PD's office. Can you go introduce yourself? So I went to the girl's office. It wasn't Yamilette, but Jami was in there. And I just remember your energy was super awesome. You're just very energetic. You had no problem, getting in on the conversation. And we just kind of hit it off from there. I want to start, though. You have a awesome, fantastic backstory of how you became a lawyer. So let's go back and what inspired you to want to become a lawyer?
I come from New York, right? I grew up in the Bronx, minority rights section, not a lot of opportunities, subjected to things, right, by police officers, right, targets and stuff like that. And so just growing where I grew up, my friends, family, seeing what's going on in my community, it just inspired me to follow my dream, right? It had always been a dream, never thought it was going to be possible, but the law of attraction, it made it happen. So
did you take the traditional path to law school?
No, it was definitely not traditional at all. I graduated high school, went to a business school, 2 years, associate's degree in hotel restaurant management, worked on hotels for many years. It took me 10 years to go back for a bachelor's. By then, I already had my child, never married, so a single parent, going back. Thankfully, I had the full support of my mother, so that helped a lot. Definitely not traditional.
Did you have a mentor that kind of helped lead you and, encourage you to continue your dream of becoming a lawyer?
I did not. If I did, I think I would have been an attorney very, very, right, coming off high school, as many people do, right? High school, college, law school. That was not the case. I think for many individuals or many, from at least my experience in school, counselors weren't asking, what do you want to be, right? How can I help you get there? Especially Spanish speaking. So English is my second language. It was hard for me to communicate with my counselor. I couldn't understand them. They couldn't understand me. So that made me kind of push away from them. It took me going back to getting my bachelor's, and that happened, I guess, was a mistake, but it was supposed to, I guess, meant for it to happen. And so, no, I did not have a role model back then.
So when you went to law school, how old was your son?
So law school was 2016, so he was maybe around 9 or 10 years old by then.
How was it juggling, law school and raising a son?
I get that question a lot. However, I am from a background that is, you don't question it, right? You just have to get from A to B to C. You don't question, are you going to get there? You know you have to get there. And I think as a single parent, you just figure things out as it happens, right? It develops. And that's how I took it with law school, right? It was my goal. I did not have any other plans. I had to pass because everybody was depending on that. And it, obviously, as you know, is very expensive. So I wasn't questioning it. It was just, it got to get done. And so didn't really think about how I was going to, do it.
It needed to happen.
It needed to happen, and it got done.
So I remember when we, would talk at the PD's office, we'd have lunch quite frequently. One of your goals was you wanted to be a federal public defender. That was, what you wanted to accomplish. And you obviously did that. tell our listeners, what helped you with your mindset and just making sure that you kept going towards that goal and going after what you wanted. How did you do that?
I always knew I wanted to go back to school. I just didn't know for what. And I really didn't want to spend the time or energy, especially as a single parent, having to pay bills and live paycheck to paycheck at the time to do it, right? And so it took me getting fired, actually, from my job, which was a blessing.
At the hotel.
At the hotel. To kind of put me in that perspective of what was my next step. I could have easily gone back to the hotel business. However, I read The Secret. And so I actually had applied for a paralegal certificate. Like I said, I always wanted to be a lawyer, didn't know what that took.
Yes.
And so my thinking was, I can become a lawyer. Next best thing is paralegal, right? I'll be working with the lawyers. And so I remember applying for the program and it got shut down right after I applied, right? So then it was like, okay, well, that didn't pan out. What's next? So then my good friend was like, why don't we just go to the college here in the Bronx and see what they have to offer? I signed up right there and then. And so that kind of led me to, okay, we could do this, right? This is the path I'm supposed to take, then we're going to go forward. And my goal had always been the Federal Defender's Office. So it had been from day one, from deciding that I was going to go back to school for that, it was with the Federal Defender's Office in sight, everything. So it has been a goal. It has been, I guess, a path that's taken about 13 years or so, but little by little, we eventually got there.
Your story, though, is such true perseverance. A lot of our listeners might not take that traditional path that you would normally take to law school, but to let people know that if you have a goal in mind and you just set your sights on that goal and you believe and you have faith that, you can accomplish whatever you put your mind to.
You can, and I truly believe that when you have that mindset and you're working towards it, the doors would open. There were so many times that I just I was tired.
Yes.
I was literally tired. Like, I do not want to go from the Bronx to Manhattan on a subway, dressed all nice just for a 1 hour event. But something would just tell me, get up, get dressed, go. And I would meet attorneys and I would meet judges. And all those doors will open if you continue on the path that you're supposed to be. That's my belief.
What do you think helped you stay motivated during that journey of yours? What helped you, continue that drive to accomplish your goals?
I don't know how to quit. But also my son, right? My son, my mother wanted to provide, right? I think all parents want something better than what they had for their kids,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
My mother wanted something better for me. I want something better for my son. And so that kind of pushed me, right? To provide not only for him, but for her as well. And to show her that her energy and her, putting money and energy, right?
Yes.
Everything that takes as a parent, it didn't go to waste.
No, and Rick and I, obviously, we want to be a good role model for our children as well. And I think that's what keeps us, motivated and driven to just keep pursuing our goals and our dreams and to show our children, hey, if you really want to accomplish something, just go after it. It brings me back to when we were outside having lunch one day. You had asked me if I had heard about The Secret. And I had always thought I was pretty positive. I mean, Rick is probably way more positive than I am. But you had, said, hey, I'll let you borrow this book. And I just remember, honestly, it was probably the first book that really opened my eyes to manifestation. I was on my, journey to find the Lord. And it just really helped me connect the two, to have faith in that higher power, to have faith in God. And then we would share, plenty of books. And I started getting Rick to listen to different podcasts and other books. How did The Secret help you throughout, your life?
I've read it possibly over 5 times. Since that very first time I read it, it just opened all the doors that I feel I needed to be open. My friend had mentioned it to me years prior to when I read it, right? But if the first 2 pages does not catch me from any book, I'm not reading it. And I guess at the time I wasn't ready for it. It took me getting fired. And at the time I was doing overnight. So obviously the body needs to get adjusted. And I would just stay up all night. Everybody else is sleeping. You do not want to make, noise. Your baby's sleeping, not trying to wake him up. And so I just decided to pick it up and I couldn't put it down. And it just took me in this, I got very intense into it, I guess, right? I recall from the book, there's they mentioned something about one of the authors or speakers says he never fights or struggles to find parking, right? And it says, you don't believe it, try it. So, okay, I will try it. And I did. And it just, after that, it was just, okay, this is what needs to be happening. You know me, every conversation I think that I have with everybody is positive thinking, the law of attraction.
Absolutely.
I find myself sometimes being too grounded and not dreaming big. And, one of the things that, you've taught me after reading The Secret is there's nothing wrong with, dreaming about, things that you want. And, if you just remain hopeful, it could happen. And if not, that's okay. Because again, there's nothing wrong with dreaming big. Like having that positivity, having that, hey, I'm going to accomplish this goal one day, or hey, I'm going to achieve that one day, or I'm going to help this person, or I'm going to be able to help do this for my family. So I think one of the things that, Jenna's impressed upon me that she learned from the book was, just dream big, think about the things that you want, think about the things that you want to accomplish, and act as though they will happen or that they've already happened. So, I think that's, something that's taken me some time to try to grow into, but it does kind of affect my mood. It affects my mentality and definitely affects the way I run a business.
Well, and I think too, when we would be at the public defender's office and talk, one of the things that drew me to you is we would talk about big ideas, big goals, big dreams. And that's kind of hard to find, honestly, in people these days. They want to talk about, other people and gossip, but, I actually got to sit down and have these fruitful, meaningful conversations with you. And that really stuck, with me, because it's important to find people that you can relate to. Are there any other books or podcasts that stick out to you that have influenced you or that you have enjoyed listening to or reading?
One that comes to mind is the Fourth Agreement,
the Four Agreements. Yeah.
Haven't read it in a while, but it also, helped me a lot. I pick up any book that has to do with positivity or changing your mindset, right? Because we all struggle. Even though I read the book and I loved it and I know, I've manifested so many things in my life, we all struggle with the negativity, right? And sometimes we just need that reminder, and life happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Right? We can't I'm not saying just because you think positive, nothing bad is going to happen. It's just needing to change that mentality and not continue to bring it in.
But no, the Four Agreements is, definitely another positive set of books that, again, kind of like the Secret, that just remind you, stay positive. Even if bad things happen, there's still good to come.
Right.
One of the things that you had also told me is The Secret had a children's book called Henry's Imagination. So obviously my children are a bit younger than your son, but I had gotten that, and we read it to our kids. What have you done to kind of prepare your son? He's just recently graduated high school. He's going off to Los Angeles for college. What have you done to prepare him and his mindset for what he has to look forward to?
I have brought The Secret to him, and at the time it was the Henry book, but my son would not get it, right? He was not interested in it. He was not, and I understand it, right? I don't push anything onto him. I want him to have his own thoughts, his own ideas, his own, whatever he believes, that's fine with me. But I do kind of mention to him, and when things happen, right, he's into obviously theater and things like that, and sometimes he's like, oh, I want this particular, right? And it's like, well, okay, think positive, work it, and then he gets it. I was like, you see, law of attraction.
Yes.
You read the book, it'll, help you. So I have kind of put it out there for him, and recently he has like, oh yeah, I got it, I was thinking about it and I got it. So I think some of the stuff is sticking in, but eventually, hopefully he learns it a lot sooner than I did. Well, it took me 30-something years, right?
I think too, just planting those seeds, right? Like you had seeds planted along your, your path. You're planting those seeds for him, and he's gonna have his own path in life, and just like we all are. But the best we can do is just try to give our kids the advice that we can, and hope they take it to heart and do what they will with it.
Right.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, now that you've experienced the public defender's office on the state level and then now at the federal level, what are some of the differences that you've noticed that have been, the most enjoyable, but at the same time, what are some of the differences that have been the most challenging?
Well, enjoyable, I always love learning, right? So challenges are my thing, right? Any challenge, bring it on. And so that has always been something I look forward to, right? Sometimes we get into that routine of things that are you're just in motion. Your brain is really not working hard, right? You're just doing it without even thinking. So that was definitely something that I enjoy from the work. Like I said, it was always my dream to be a federal defender. Today is actually my 5-month anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, and I love it. The differences, I mean, it's drastic, right? It's night and day. You get used to one system and it's two completely different systems. Everything is done differently. So it's kind of starting from zero. Thankfully, I do have a lot of coworkers that are very helpful. Everybody in the office is very helpful and very understanding. They've been there. So like you, right? When I first met you, any question I had, I would come to your office. And so it's just a learning process and going through the motions and trying to capture everything, right? And it's hard because a lot of information comes at you super, super fast while you're learning and also handling cases and talking to clients. And so it's a lot.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was the difference in terms of knowing what evidence the state has and what their witnesses are going to say on the state level, and then moving to the federal side. You don't have the benefit of all that knowledge before trial. You don't have the ability to do depositions. You're basically having to find all this out, on the fly as it's presented to a jury in court. So, how has that change been for you, and what are some of the things that you've learned to sort of deal with that element of surprise?
It is a struggle, right? We got spoiled in state where you could do your depositions and you could contact everybody and kind of get everything ahead of time. And you kind of know, okay, I think I've gotten everything. Just be on the lookout, try to ask as many questions from my coworkers as well that I've gone through those similar cases and kind of know from them what to expect, what not to expect. And I ask a lot of questions. I think Jenna could tell you. And so it just taking every information that I could get from anyone, right? Even from the government side, right? When I started, I had a violation of supervised release and spoke with the government attorney. Super nice lady, right? Told her, I don't hide the ball, as you know, I don't hide the ball. So, I'm brand new. So, take it easy. And she even actually threw me a bone in court, right? That I was not even expecting. And so, and taught me, right, something in regards to the criminal history for that particular client. So, oh, well, that's good to know. Thank you very much. I appreciate the help from anyone. But it is so hard, right? Sometimes you just have to do it yourself. I think at this time I'm still trying to figure out where I fall in that and what I need to do. Every day is different. Every case is different. Every judge is different. So it's a lot to kind of navigate. But again, just learning.
I will say one great thing about your personality that I learned early on is that you're very much a go-getter, and you're very much willing to jump on board with whatever is presented to you. So I had a case at the public defender's office. It was a felony case that was going to trial. A CNA, certified nursing assistant, was accused of inappropriately touching his patients. And on the face of it, it seemed like a terrible case for us. And, not many people want to try it, or they said, why is he going to trial? You're going to lose. And I remember you being like, yep, I'll try it with you. Send me the discovery. Let's start going through it. And we immediately started, brainstorming, was he truly guilty of what they were accusing him of? And you were just so into the case, willing to, look for defenses. And we ended up winning the case. I very much remember trying that case with you and just having somebody as my second chair that I could, turn to and rely on. So that's, a phenomenal quality and trait that you have. Have you had any cases at the federal PD's office yet that are set for trial?
Federal, they set the cases for trial very, very quick. And so I do have some that are going, but like you said, I'm very meticulous about turning every page and reading everything and watching every video. And so I love puzzles. So I always take my cases like a puzzle.
Yes.
Right? That I have to put together, and then which piece am I missing, right?
Yeah.
So, and I remember you were pregnant then. I think you were like 7-8 months pregnant. I was like, you're insane, but okay, we're doing this. The environment I come from, I think, helped a lot, right? My community, right? So we tend to look for everything, right? I know that things are missed in translation, or police reports don't include every side, right? And so I like to focus on that. I know plenty of people who are defendants, right? Family, friends, from my community. And so I know what is important for the client, right? Sometimes it's not whether they're guilty or not, it's more listening to them, listening to their story, right? How did they get to this point?
Absolutely.
And how can we help? And also, the burden is not on us, right?
Yeah.
And so put that pressure on, right? On the part or the system that is supposed to have the pressure, the burden of proving the case. So that's how I take every case. I don't, no favorites, no anything, right? It's like, okay, this is what I have to deal with, then we're going to go through it. And listening to the clients, I think that's very important, and getting to know what happens, right? Because we get documentations, right? And there's pages and pages and hundreds of pages, but it's still something is always missing. And so it's always that piece from the client that nobody ever bothered to even get it from them. So
no, and you make a great point. It's when you start going through things with a fine-tooth comb, and you're really looking at what is said, and you start breaking it down, and also looking at it from the other side's perspective. How are they going to argue this? How can I counter argue that? When we were preparing for that one trial, we did a really good job at pointing different things out, and especially having a different point of view. You were able to bring things to my attention that I hadn't thought about, which has obviously been super helpful too, in terms of now having the firm with Rick, where it's just two different perspectives. It's definitely helpful to have someone else's perspective. And like you said, you're not afraid to ask, your colleagues questions if you need help, or if there's something that you don't know. And that's essentially how you learn. So that's, great that you do that. And, we try to ask each other questions, ask other attorneys questions, and just really absorb everything we can. Jami, thank you again for being on our show. We really appreciate you being here and telling us your story.
it was my pleasure.
Thank you again for tuning in to From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast.